And what is great news for communicable diseases everywhere? Anti vax conspiracy theorist RFK Jr. has been officially confirmed as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Oh boy. Now, strangely, his biggest alleged foe, the pharmaceutical industry, the health industry, is eerily silent. Hmm, that's weird. Now, why is that? Aren't they worried about RFK Jr.? I mean, yes, he has said some pretty tough things against the pharmaceutical industry, against the healthcare industry. So, why are then they so quiet? Well, according to five people who represent different health groups, they're hoping that, Kennedy. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to do that much harm. you know, I mean, we're hoping for the best. I mean, we're a little concerned because he's a bit of a crackpot, but like, okay, yeah, and he's made some good points, but we're just gonna hope for the best. Okay, really, really, that's very very interesting because normally, whenever you get somebody who actually threatens the healthcare industry and their profits, they attack. I mean, for example, when progressive groups tried to get people into office, like, for example, Bernie Sanders, that would do things like Medicare for all, which actually is a threat to the healthcare industry, these groups spent millions of dollars to block them. There were ads everywhere, but and they were very very successful, by the way, because we don't have a progressive president. And so, what happened? Is Kennedy not a threat then? I wouldn't say that. There are certainly some things that Kennedy is a threat to, other than just people's health. Okay, but that said, maybe he's not as big of a threat to these companies as someone who has genuine leftist, anti-capitalist policies would be. Okay, I mean, there is a reason that Republicans, by and large, backed this guy. And why America groups like the American Medical Association took no stance on Kennedy's nomination. That's a bit curious. I mean, not only that, but you had the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, Pharma, okay, the biggest, most well-known group for buying off members of Congress, saying things like, "We can't wait to work with Donald Trump and his team." Wow. Not only that, but you also have one of the most telling quotes here from Tom Tillis, who said, quote, "I believe that silence is consent. The fact that they haven't opposed Kennedy publicly suggests to me that folks that I'm instructed by are okay with this nomination. The folks that I am instructed by, which happens to be giant healthcare corporations and pharmaceutical companies, okay, that buy out both sides, by the way, they were saying, this guy's okay. I'm instructed by them, and they're fine with him. Really? That is really interesting. That is really interesting. Look, I think at the end of the day, the reason is Kennedy isn't going to go after the pharmaceutical industry's major money makers. Okay, he is an anti-vax conspiracy theorist. The major money makers for these pharmaceutical companies are not vaccines. Okay, let me show you some of this is from 2023. Cancer drugs. Okay, things for Crohn's disease, Humira. Right, you have Ozempic, which is diabetes drug. Okay, anticoagulant. You have Dupixent. I just love the weird names that they give them. And oh look, all the way down, you see the COVID-19 vaccine, but you see the growth rate here, -72% growth rate for COVID-19 vaccines. Okay, and this is all for sales. So vaccines are not their big money maker. Yes, they made a lot of money off the vaccines during COVID, during a pandemic. But generally, when, business is normal, when everything is, normal, status quo, these companies make most of their profits from these other kinds of drugs. Biologics were a big thing, okay, and it still are a big thing. Humira is a biologic, and so they make a ton of money off those things, okay. Not so much for vaccines. Now that said, am I on board with make America healthy again? Well, that depends on what you would want to do by making America healthy, right? Am I in favor of more diet and exercise? Well, do I think that that will help increase, lifespans and make people healthier? Yeah, of course I do, right? Yes, no brainer. And so I would agree with RFK Jr. on those, right? But you know what also help make Americans healthier? Universal health care, Medicare for all. Okay, yes, that would help as well. All right. That said, at the same time, the Trump administration is never going to do Medicare for all, right? And they're also gutting Medicaid, which is a lifeline for people. Look, some of the things that RFK Jr. says is correct. Some of the things, right? Look, processed foods, they're not great, okay? High fructose corn syrup in basically everything, that's not good, okay? And that's a lot of it's thanks to government subsidies of corn, okay, for big business, right? And look, there's also a lack of regulations on food, okay? Some of the stuff that we put in our food, they have banned in Europe. And of course, Europe has higher life expectancies than we do, but they also have universal health care, okay? And so, look, doing more regulation on what gets into our food supply and how we make our food, things like that, that would be great. These are things that, by and large, have not been addressed by Democratic administrations who get paid a lot by industry as well. Now, that said, Republicans, they're not doing anything about this either. They want less regulation of the food industry. Okay, so I don't really know how any of that under a Republican administration is going to make America healthy again. No, all they're going to do is focus on the anti-vax stuff, okay, which is going to lead to a return of diseases like tuberculosis and polio. Okay, none of that is good. What we need is universal health care, Medicare for all. We need, good regulation on food manufacturers to make sure that they're not putting crap in our food. Ban the, some of the stuff that these companies put in there that they do to save money. Okay. Again, as I mentioned, Europe did all of that, and they have a higher life expectancy. They have healthier outcomes. Maybe we should copy some of those things. That would be great. I don't see that happening with RFK Jr. I don't think a man who promotes debunked vaccine conspiracy theories and agrees with Alex Jones that, we got the chemicals in the water, they're making the frogs gay, and you know what? You know what they're also doing?
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
And they're also making the kids gay and trans, and so we got to get the fluoride out of the water or something. I know it's not I know they're not saying that it's the fluoride that's doing that, but at the same time, he's also against fluoride in the water. Okay, so I don't think that a person who believes in that stuff is going to do much on universal health care. Hey, I could be wrong. He could be a Trojan horse. All right. But from what I've seen so far, I don't believe it. Which is why the food industry and the medical industry really don't seem to be too concerned about RFK Jr. running our healthcare system. And that should concern all of us. Co-President Elon Musk's group, Doge, claims that they're eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. However, when you look at what they're cutting, and they're saying, well, we're very, very transparent about what we're cutting, right? Well, one effect of that is that it shows that the stuff that they are cutting is not because of waste, fraud, and abuse. It's because of the fact that they are ideologically opposed to these programs and to this spending. This is according to two veteran Republican budget experts, okay? So we're not talking about the opinion of leftists or even liberals. No, these are conservatives. These are right-wingers that are saying this, ones who are concerned about the budget. Okay. Now, one of them is Douglas Holtz Eakin, who was a former Republican director of the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO. They're the ones that release these scores, and on how much it's going to certain bills are going to impact the budget. So now Holtz Eakin, said the agencies that Musk and Trump have been targeting to date actually account for only a small fraction of the overall federal budget. So you're really not going after the big fish, right? In fact, he says, quote, they are not going into agencies that are doing things they like. They are going into agencies they ideologically disagree with. And they're not even saving taxpayers a significant amount of money in doing so. According to the Doge live tracker, right? The department, which really isn't a real department, okay, has allegedly only saved taxpayers about $37.69 billion since it began the work on January 20th. So now you could say, well, they just haven't gotten to everything yet. Sure. Now, for one, how do we know those numbers are legit? We do not. There seems to be a lot of trust me, bro, going on here. But of course, the reason that a lot of Republicans love this is because, number one, it's stuff they don't really understand. And number two, they've been primed to hate it anyway. According to the other Republican, former Republican staffer and director of the Senate Budget Committee, Bill Hoagland, he said the cost-cutting efforts so far have been designed to play to Donald Trump's base and have been, quote, low-hanging fruit for ideological reasons. The playbook has not been for the dollar savings, but more for the philosophical and ideological differences conservatives had for the work that these agencies do. Got it. So, their entire thing is, I don't like it, therefore, it is it is waste, fraud, and abuse. So, you agree with feeding hungry children overseas, and so you consider that to be fraud. Okay, got it. Now, speaking of waste, fraud, and abuse, right? What about the Defense Department? Now, Trump says, oh, Musk, you should probably take a look at that. You might find a lot. Well, probably. I mean, the Defense Department cannot pass an audit. The military-industrial complex accounts for so much waste. If they actually took a look at it and actually got them to reduce, the military budget by a lot, right? That would be great. I mean, you even have some of these conservative outlets that are reporting the government is paying $1,300 to $1,500 for coffee cups and $150,000 for soap dispensers. And yeah, if you can get away with get rid of that would be great. Okay, but what about the main issue is weapons that don't work? Things like that jet F-35 or whatever that seems to have a lot of problems. Do you think Doge is going to touch some of those things, some of those contracts? I don't know. That said, I'm sure that there's got to be a lot of Republicans that are outraged at how much we've been spending on the military, especially now that, hey, there's a lot of Republican voters that are anti-war, or at least they say that they're anti-war. I'm anti-war as well. So I would love to see a massive reduction in the Pentagon budget, okay, and no more wars overseas, okay? That would be great. I'm not necessarily sold on Donald Trump being an anti-war voice, though. I mean, the left has been talking about cutting the Pentagon budget and being anti-war for a very, very long time, right? Of course, every time we talk about it, it was like, oh, why do you hate the troops? Why do you hate the troops? You got to support the troops. What? No, it's not about that, okay? Most of the money in the Pentagon budget doesn't go to the troops, it goes to the defense contractors, okay? These private corporations that have government contracts that are very, very lucrative that they don't want to let go of. And speaking of lucrative government contracts that will not be touched, you have SpaceX, okay? Getting an additional $8 million in funding just on Monday alone. They made $8 million in a day. Now, this new award is part of a contract SpaceX received back in 2020 to support NASA's development of a human landing system integrated lander. Now, this is a near $4.5 billion contract total that was supposed to end and has been extended to 2027. So, Elon Musk getting some sweet deals here, right? And that follows the $21 million SpaceX received on January 21st, the day after Donald Trump's inauguration. And he will also likely get a contract with the State Department to sell them a bunch of Cybertrucks. But don't worry, Musk, he has no conflict of interest. In fact, he's too rich to have a conflict of interest. I mean, how could you even suggest such a thing? He doesn't actually need the money. Really? Sure. Yeah, okay. I don't believe you.
Really?
Yes. But getting back to the things that they are cutting from the government, when you look at it, a curious pattern seems to emerge. See, out of the 15 agencies Musk's team have targeted so far, turns out 9 of them were singled out for elimination or downsizing in Project 2025. Now, that document makes the hilarious claim that all these agencies, they've been taken over by the left-wing elite that has been using taxpayer money to push a liberal agenda weaponized against conservative values. Yes, feeding children in other countries is weaponizing against is being weaponized against conservative values. Conservative value of letting people starve. Great, awesome, sure. Look, all this is fever swamp stuff. Okay, straight from Newsmax. Oh, the liberal indoctrination of weaponizing government against conservatism. I mean, okay, but unfortunately, thanks to Trump, it's now the law of the land. I mean, Russell Vought pretty much co-wrote Project 2025, and he is now the director of the Office of Management and Budget. So, it's a pretty plum role to which he can weaponize government against the left, and that's what he's doing. Now, that said, one of the agencies that Musk is trying to get rid of is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. Now, this is the agency that's responsible for returning $21 billion to consumers who were ripped off by corporations. Yeah. But no, he's like, oh, we got to get rid of it. Rip it right out. Gee, I wonder why you want to do that. Look, the CFPB has a $711 million reserve fund. But Musk, he's like, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to rip up the CFPB. But don't worry, I'm going to return that money to the taxpayer. I think they should get it. Really? Well, how much is that going to be? That's going to be a $2 windfall for every taxpayer. Yeah, boy, that's certainly so worth so much more than having an agency there to protect us from being screwed over by these giant corporations, which has returned billions of dollars in ill-gotten gains to the taxpayer. But thank goodness we're going to get a $2. Wow, $2 return. If we're talking about efficiency, let's do the math, huh? That agency, again, has returned about $66 per person in fraud reimbursements, but costs roughly $2 a person annually. When you do the math on that, it's about 3,000% efficient. Okay, that's its efficiency score, 3,003%. So obviously, though, Musk is like, it's so inefficient, we must get rid of it. No, of course, the real reason that he wants to get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is because he wants to rip off consumers. He wants to make money. He does not want to be regulated. That's very, very simple, okay? And look, one of the big things that he's trying to do with his X platform, okay, is turn it into a payment app, all right? Why do you think that he had his wonderkins get into the treasury? I mean, when the day that payment app is ready, do have you thought of the possibility that some of these kids put in a back door to that treasury payment system that allows him to take control and to flip over that payment system to using his app so that all the government payments would go through him, $6 trillion worth, allowing him to skim as much money he wants off the top, or even more disturbing, the possibility that he could stop payments to people or groups he does not like. People who might have badmouthed him online. You don't know. That seems to be too much power concentrated in the hands of one unelected billionaire. All right. When it comes down to it, this is really the more efficient way to take over a country. Not with force of arms, but with the money. Control the banking, control the finance, and you control everything else. That is the real path of tyranny, people. And we're just about there. The Republican Party has unveiled their new budget proposal. And in it, they declare open war on poor people. Oh boy. Now, specifically taking aim at Medicaid and food stamps. So these are, again, respectively, the healthcare program for low-income Americans and the food program for low-income Americans. Okay. The budget document tasked the House Energy and Commerce Committee with finding $880 billion in savings over the next 10 years and directs the House Committee on Agriculture to identify another $230 billion in cuts. So it's just over $1 trillion there, but that's actually only half of what they want to cut. They want to cut $2 trillion. So decimate Medicaid and food stamps, which would only give them half of what they're asking for. But in return, well, they do want to give $4.5 trillion worth of tax cuts, which are mainly going to go to the rich. So this is your upward redistribution of wealth, okay? Going from programs that help poor people to tax cuts that don't really help rich people. I mean, yeah, they're going to save more money, and then what are they going to do with it? They're not going to feed people. They're probably not even going to spend it. It's going to sit there. It's going to rot. Okay, that's not good. Now, of course, the way that they did this was a bit sneaky, though, right? The document doesn't say explicitly we are going to cut $880 billion from Medicaid. No, they're being sly about it. Telling these committees, please find us some savings. And you know exactly where they're going to find it, okay? Now, the Energy and Commerce Committee oversees Medicaid spending. That's one of their biggest expenses. That is their biggest expense, I believe. Or maybe the second biggest expense. And the Agricultural Panel, of course, is jurisdiction over SNAP program and other nutritional programs. And so Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program costs about $609 billion. The only other thing in there that costs more is Medicare. So Trump promised not to touch Social Security or Medicare. And so Republicans are like, well, we got to find the money somewhere. And it's going to come out of Medicaid and food stamps. Look, Mike Johnson, who's House Speaker, he has been harping on work requirements for some time, right? For people who not only receive Medicaid, but food stamps. Obviously, there's been a lot of studies on these, imposing work requirements. That doesn't actually work, okay? It doesn't actually help increase savings or help people get jobs, okay? A lot of people who are on food stamps and Medicaid actually already work, okay? That said, the amount that they would like to cut to hit that $2 trillion in cuts would have to go far beyond imposing just work requirements on Medicaid and food stamps, okay? Look, they're going to have to they're going to have to make major cuts in Medicaid and possibly even Medicare, okay, in order to hit that $2 trillion. So this is an example of class warfare against the poor for the benefit of a very, very few rich people. Now, they say, of course, well, we got to make these spending cuts to offset the cost of the tax cuts, right? But that would, again, only equal about half of what they're looking to add to the deficit when it comes to tax cuts. And look, maybe they're going to argue, well, hey, look, the tax cuts are going to pay for themselves, right? Well, we've been down that road before. They never pay for themselves. Okay. And the benefit cuts, they're going to hurt the economy. Look, for every dollar that's spent on SNAP, there's at least $1.50 in economic activity. Okay. Some figures even go up to $2. All right. So there's that. Helps the economy, helps feed people and keep them alive. Great. Medicaid, that program also literally keeps people alive. But even with these massive cuts, the tax cuts for the rich is still going to add a massive amount to the deficit, about $3 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, of course, Republicans know this, which is why they're seeking to raise the debt ceiling. Because, of course. Do you remember when Republicans were like, you irresponsible, raise the debt ceiling to pay for things, asking the children to go into more debt? Oh, my God. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Okay. Where are the deficit hawks then? Well, they're here. They just don't care. Okay. They're like, no, we want more cuts. That's what we want. We want an additional $500 billion in cuts. That's what we want. Really? Well, problem is there's only so much you can cut from social safety net programs, which are basically Swiss cheese as they are. Okay. And so, especially ones that have helped your voters. I mean, there are people that voted for Republicans, people that vote for Donald Trump that are on food stamps, that are on different various, Medicaid, government assistance, not to mention people on Medicare, Social Security, etc. And so if they do this, if they actually go forward with these cuts, which they're going to try through budget reconciliation, then millions of people are going to lose their health care, and you're going to have a lot of people that are going to go hungry. Okay. Look, there's a lot of people that might not be aware that if their state had expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, okay, so the state Medicaid expansion, there are in certain states like Arizona, for example, that have trigger laws. If federal funding goes below a certain point, for that state, it's 80%. Okay, the trigger law will kick in and repeal the expansion, and you would have millions of people that instantly lose their health care. Gone. And so these are people who are low income, women, children, the disabled, people over 65. They will absolutely lose their health care. And as an effect, there is a certain percentage of them that will die. They will not be able to afford their Medicare, or I'm sorry, their medication. Okay? They will not be able to afford going to the doctor. They will die. When you are poor and do not have health care, that is your likely result. Now, of course, people that are in favor of these cuts, these Republicans, will say, well, just get a job then. Work requirements. Just get a job. Just get a job. It's just super easy. Right. At a time where the government is firing large swaths of its workforce. That's right. That's happening. You're going to end up with a complete and utter disaster. Unemployment is skyrocketing. People will starve and die and not have health care. So that's what you're setting up. And by the way, thousands of people a year already die from lack of health care. Okay. It's about 65,000 people a year die from lack of health care. And you have to be, a lot of that has to do with the states that did not expand Medicaid and people that fall into that donut hole where they're not poor enough to get Medicaid, but, they also can't afford health insurance or can't afford to use their health insurance. And so you have those people that die in the middle. They can't afford their medication, anything like that. That's already bad enough. Now they're taking that situation. Republicans are going to make it worse. Okay. Things are going to get really, really bad if they force these cuts through. And as I mentioned, they have a plan in doing so. It's budget reconciliation. Okay. That only requires a simple majority vote. in the Senate. Republicans have a simple majority. So, yeah. Get ready. Get ready for massive pain, death, and starvation. Also, that Republicans could shower their donors with your money, with our money, to benefit just a few wealthy families. Many corporate CEOs have been fairly silent after initially feeling optimistic about President Donald Trump's return to the White House. However, now one of them seems to be sounding the alarm. During a Tuesday appearance in New York City, Ford CEO Jim Farley had spoke about some threats to U.S. auto manufacturing and, of course, their suppliers. Now, he said that Trump killing the EVs, rolling back things in the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as the tariffs against Canada and Mexico will have a disastrous effect. Quote, jobs will be at risk if Trump ends EV support. That's according to an account in the Detroit News. For the tariffs, Farley said, quote, they could blow a hole in the U.S. industry that we've never seen. Blow a hole, you say. Leopards meet face. Okay? I'm pretty sure that this CEO, along with many of the others that are going to be impacted, many of the voters that are going to be impacted here, the workers, voted for Donald Trump. I mean, Ford gave $1 million and donated vehicles to Donald Trump's inauguration. And yet now that Trump had won and he's doing the things that he campaigned on, they're all like,
oh no!
How could this happen? So he said, quote, frankly, this gives free rein to South Korean, Japanese, and European companies that are bringing in 1.5 to 2 million vehicles into the U.S. that wouldn't be subject to the Mexican and Canadian tariffs. Remember, he wants to put 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Currently, those are not in effect, but there are tariffs on China, 10%, and he's also put tariffs on aluminum and steel coming into the United States from anywhere. So, oof. Now, he said of this, quote, it would be one of the biggest windfalls for those companies ever. And not for me. But that's not all. When it comes to rolling back the support for EVs, he said that that's going to kill that's going to hurt the companies. It's going to kill the jobs. Quote, we've already sunk capital, even though we've rationalized it, into battery production and assembly plants all through Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Many of those jobs would be at risk if big parts of the Inflation Reduction Act are repealed. Now, Trump has said, I want to get rid of the Inflation Reduction Act because Joe Biden signed it. Okay? Trump's been looking to get rid of it. He's not in favor of it. Okay? And so getting rid of that and the EV stuff, it's going to have a big impact on those 4 states that supported Trump in 2024. Okay? It's going to have an impact on the union members who voted for Donald Trump. He is going to hurt the very people who voted for him, which isn't a surprise. Okay? He's already hurt the farmers. Okay? Now, Trump, Farley said, has talked about making our U.S. auto industry stronger, bringing more production here or innovation in the U.S. But so far, a lot of what we're seeing is a lot of costs and a lot of chaos. Yeah. So, look, hey, I'm in favor of manufacturing in the United States, buying American. Yeah, all that stuff is great, but we need to have the ability to make things here, and that's not going to happen overnight. Okay, and again, what the tariffs are doing is it's not going to bring back manufacturing overnight. We still need to import things to build those cars in the U.S. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into a car. Think of all the parts that go into it. Think of all the manufacturing that goes into those parts. Okay? There is no way to instantly relocate all of that out of Canada and Mexico and back into the United States. Now, it would have been great had the CEOs not decided to send those jobs overseas, especially into Mexico where wages were lower. There weren't as many worker protections. Okay, they wouldn't have to pay as much for workers and for health care, things like that. But these CEOs, they got greedy and they outsourced a lot of the jobs. Now Trump, he's putting tariffs, which are going to, of course, increase costs, while not really benefiting the American worker. It's hurting the American worker, at least in the short term. Okay, so that's a problem. So obviously, higher prices, less sales equals more layoffs, of course. So what Donald Trump is doing is right now putting us into a recession. Okay, unemployment is likely to skyrocket, and that's even if the tariffs don't go into effect, right? Um, Look, I know the defensive, like, but you don't understand. He's negotiating. He's using the tariffs as a tactic. I'm not against that in principle, right? But you have to be really careful about what you're doing because you can cause a trade war, right? And so that's not good for the economy. All right. So he's doing that. Plus, he's doing mass firings in the government right now, getting rid of a lot of government workers. And he's also taking away any of the incentives to build electric cars, even though the infrastructure has already been put into place here to build those EVs in America. So that's a huge problem. Huge. Really, really, really stupid. Okay, to do that. Why take away the EV stuff in the Inflation Reduction Act when it's already being assembled here in the United States? It doesn't make any sense.
Stupid.
Okay. That said, I do have one, I guess, theory. It's not even a theory. It's just it's an observation. Okay. Elon Musk. All right. Does Elon Musk care about these subsidies? You would think he would, but then again, he's super rich. So, and not only that, but maybe he thinks, oh no, if you kill off EVs here in the United States, it's actually going to help me because that's going to hurt my competition. That actually makes better cars than my crappy Tesla Cyberdump. Okay, and so yeah, hey, that's going to help me. My competition is going to be hurting. They're going to do layoffs while I can go and take the business and sell more of my cars. And even if I'm not selling more cars to average consumers, that's okay. I run the government now. So I'm going to get government contracts. I mean, they're already signing contracts with the State Department to sell them Cybertrucks. So I think he's going to be fine. He's already the richest man in the world. So, the government no longer supporting EVs, it's going to work out just fine for him. He doesn't need it anymore. But the result of this will kill a lot of jobs in the auto industry. Okay? And so those are good paying union jobs. Okay? So that's going to be a problem. Unemployment's going to go up. And not only that, but prices are going to go up as a result of these tariffs. Okay? The tariffs on steel and aluminum. A lot of steel and aluminum goes into cars. So you're already looking at huge increases in prices for these cars. I don't know. I can't really speak for them since I'm no longer a union member. Okay. I was when I was working in the automotive industry. But, that was a long time ago. All right. I can say, though, I'm pretty sure that this is not what 41% of those union members who voted for Trump wanted. I mean, I'm pretty sure they wanted to continue to have their jobs and to get paid. Maybe they wanted to hurt brown people and immigrants and transgenders more, which, hey, congratulations, you did. You did it. Good job. But in the process, they may have also hurt themselves. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they don't quite realize how much they just screwed themselves, may have just screwed themselves. But I have a feeling that pretty soon they're going to find out. On Wednesday, it was discovered that the Trump administration literally stole $80 million from New York City's bank account. Now, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, said that this $80 million was a clawback, and it's because they were doing illegal things. They were sheltering migrants. Mm. So gone is the $59 million grant that the administration challenged earlier in the week, and another award for $21.5 million. So unfortunately, a federal judge said, well, I mean, FEMA, if they want to, they can go and take the money, I guess. Now, City Comptroller Brad Lander was not happy about this. He said the money was discovered to be missing overnight. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure says this Elon Musk's hands all over it. Okay. Because he's the guy who's staying up overnight. And we're gonna use it. We're gonna steal that money back. Now, he said that no one in his office has been aware that the federal government even had access to the city's bank account, which is kind of scary when you think about it. Lander said, today, my NYC comptroller office discovered that $80 million in already authorized, allocated, and paid federal aid was wiped from the city's bank account. Let's be crystal clear, this is highway robbery. Elon Musk, with no legal authority, illegally seized federal funds from New Yorkers. He said the money was supposed to reimburse the city for the costs that had already incurred and had invoiced to the federal government. So federal government was supposed to pay them back. And they did. That was what the money was for. And then they're like, never mind. So, yeah, that's definite Trump-style reneging on a contract. That's what they're doing, though. Coming in and just yanking out money under the cloak of night. Again, the grants were applied for and awarded during the Biden administration. They were not dispersed until last week, which is when Doge flagged it. Okay? So Elon Musk in his Doge not department, comes in and says, this $59 million. We don't like this. We don't like this at all. Why? Why don't you like it? Well, because the money was being used to house migrants. Really? Not only were they housing migrants, but they were housing it in luxury hotels. Yes, and this is while FEMA is allowing Americans to go without after the hurricanes. Can you believe it? No, because it's not true. There's absolutely no shred of evidence here to support that. They're staying in luxury hotels. No, in fact, over the last 2 years, New York City leased several budget hotels and other vacant buildings to turn into migrant shelters. These were not luxury hotels. All right. I mean, maybe to go and get a room there, since New York City is pretty expensive, right? Their cost of living is super high. Maybe someone looks at how much it is to cost, how much it costs to rent a room. And it's like, wow, that must be luxury. But in reality, no, it's not luxury. These are not luxury hotels. Okay. That said, whether they're luxury or not doesn't really matter to the average MAGA voter, right? Because any amount of money that's spent on migrants immediately triggers their brain. And they hate it. Oh my God, migrants! You're spending money on migrants? I hate migrants. Ugh. In fact, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said at a briefing on Wednesday that the administration felt that paying for the hotels for migrants in the city was not a worthy expense. Not a worthy expense. Housing migrants, not worthy. Now, what's interesting is what they do believe is worthy, which is paying private prisons more money to house migrants. And then this is while, waiting to have them deported, which, again, costs money. These flights, okay? Flying them out after housing them in private prisons. It's a lot of money. A lot of money. Okay. It costs a lot more than housing them in hotels. Okay. Again, budget hotels. All right. Look, and the cost of the deportation that is happening, oh boy. According to the American Immigration Council, deporting 1 million migrants per year incurs a cost of $88 billion. And again, private prisons, they've got to be paid to house the migrants before they're flown out at our expense to another country. So that's a lot of money. So it really tells me that it's not the cost that it's concerned about. Okay. No, the whole point is to be cruel. Cruelty for cruel sake, right? Um, that said, can can the government, can FEMA just come in and take the money? Apparently, as I mentioned, the federal judge ruled on Wednesday the administration can continue the efforts to withhold the FEMA money from the city. This is U.S. District Judge John McConnell in Rhode Island. He said the money was not subject to an order, still in effect, aimed at preventing an administration pause on federal funding. So this is a different case, all right? And there it is. Now, that said, FEMA's acting administrator claimed in court documents filed on Tuesday that the money, the reason they clawed back this $80 million was illegal activities. What are you talking about? Illegal activities? Which ones? I don't know, man. Just trust us, bro. It's all legal. There's so much crime going on. Big crime. Big league crime. So we're just going to take back the money. Okay. So look, Lander is questioning this, right? But what about Mayor Eric Adams? I mean, shouldn't he be raising a stink? Well, I don't know. He was recently, thanks to Trump, got out of corruption charges. Oops. So I don't think that Mayor Eric Adams is going to do much about this. Okay. He was, again, let go specifically, according to a top official, because Donald Trump wanted Adams free to aid him with his immigration agenda. You know, getting rid of the migrants. Now, Adams said, oh, yeah, no, city officials, they have contacted the White House about getting back the money. Yes, that's it. Not only that, but I am going to discuss the matter with Trump's border czar, Tom Homan. Yes, we're gonna have a discussion here about me getting us getting back the money. Look, maybe they'll announce some sort of deal where they get the money, but at the cost of even more, assistance with helping Donald Trump deport people. And we're not talking about criminals, right? We're talking about just anybody who is here without documentation. Okay, no criminal record, nothing, because a lot of people have been scooped up by the ICE raids. Okay, people without criminal charges against them, and they're allowed to do that now. And so I think that Donald Trump is going to get what he wants because he has bought the loyalty of Eric Adams. As for FEMA, they just fired 4 people, okay, who made the payments under a program that Congress had already passed and appropriated called the Shelter and Services Program, which was created to aid cities that shelter migrants, like exactly what they were doing in New York City. Okay. Under New York law, a city must offer shelter to anyone who needs it. That said, well, they're not able to because they don't have the money. And it's all based on, of course, lies. Oh, they're luxury hotels. Blah, blah. No. Look, at the end of the day, none of this is about efficiency. None of this is about the law, because Donald Trump is breaking the law by just reaching in and stealing that money, okay, that was congressionally appropriated, okay. No, the only thing that it's ever been about is cruelty and trying to punish any city, any official that is not as openly cruel as they are. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.